And perfect.
Good.
Yeah, let's do it.
I want to be closer to your mic too. I feel like normally they're like, yeah.
Okay, so the intro is going to be filmed after the interview.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just start with the interview.
Mm-hmm. I usually just say, thanks for coming and hanging out with me. I appreciate it, blah, blah, blah. Something, tell us about you, whatever.
Okay.
Like, that's usually,
Okay.
because I do the same thing. My intro is separate from my episode, so.
Okay. Hey, Kristen, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm really, really excited to be doing this with you right now. YFE has not had any videos or podcasts for a long time, and I think it's so, so important for women out there to know that there are other young female entrepreneurs out there doing and pursuing the same things that they are, and I'm really, really excited to be bringing this back. So today we are going to be talking about your nonprofit. So you founded a nonprofit called Brave and Mighty Girls. So tell us a little bit about Brave and Mighty Girls.
Yes. It's kind of like my soul is giving back to the world. So it's, I describe it as a gift to my younger self. I wish that when I was in junior high and high school that I had had this kind of a connection or opportunity. So the mission is to connect the young women in the area with business women, either business owners or career professionals, people who do side hustles, doesn't really matter. Like, the point is to give them the opportunity to see all of the possibilities that are out there for them, that they don't have to just follow a traditional career path. And if they want to, then we're connecting them with people who they can get to know and form a mentorship type of relationship with. So.
Wow. So what was the inspiration for this? What made you want to start this nonprofit?
It kind of ties in with my business that I started, so the timing on it all kind of worked out really well. So I started my own business a few years ago, and this has always been in my mind. Like, I always wanted to do something along these lines. So the timing worked out. I have a ton of really great connections and resources, and it felt like the right time to start and develop that here locally. So.
Okay, so you wanted to start this nonprofit to help junior and high school girls connect with business owners and to see that they can start a business too, which I think is amazing, because I think so many women, they have no clue that they even have the option of starting a business, or they realize that it's an option, but they like see this really scary, intimidating world of business of like, oh my goodness, like most of the business owners that they personally know are probably men, right? And there's like so many ways to get started in business, and there's so many strategies to understand that I think it's really intimidating. So what were your biggest challenges getting started with this nonprofit? Like, what did you come up against when you were like, okay, we're starting this, we're doing this thing? What were the actual, obstacles that you may have faced in bringing this to life?
A couple of like bigger ones. So I got my board in place really quickly because I had people in mind that I wanted to have help me on the board. I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this if I'm doing it by myself. So I need support. I need people that are passionate about what I'm trying to do and will be able to help as much as they can. So it's a working board too. It's not just we hang out once a month and meet about things. They actually help with stuff when it comes to the nonprofit. So when we first started, I think funding was challenging because we basically started with nothing. And then we got some donations and stuff, so then we were able to actually start filing for like our official 501c3 status. But that is also super delayed because of COVID. So they were like a year behind in processing and filing for 501c3 paperwork. So that's still, it's almost done now. And then the challenges on the tail end of COVID of trying to find event space we've met with some local schools and different like parent-teacher type organizations, but we wanted to be able to have flexibility so that as we grow, we can have events all around the city because it is a big city. So we want to try and make it accessible. But yeah, I think event space, COVID stuff, and just kind of figuring out what we wanted to do because we have all these really big plans that we want to accomplish. So we were trying to go like put the cart before the horse, as they say, and do things that are probably going to happen down the road, but we just needed to like reel it in a little bit and start small.
Okay, so it sounds to me like something that was really important in the beginning and is probably still really important is like making those connections. So reaching out to the right people, having conversations with the people that you need to have conversations with to get things moving. So let's kind of break this down a little bit because I know a lot of like young women, if they're out there and they've never started a business or maybe they've never started a nonprofit, it's like, okay, what is step one? So you told me that you got some board members together and together you guys started having strategy sessions and you started reaching out to local organizations and schools. But how did that actually lay out? What would you say is an important first step for a young female entrepreneur who would want to start a nonprofit and actually take it to the point where they're planning their first event, they're getting exposure?
I think one of the most important things for a business or a nonprofit is getting really, really clear about what you're trying to accomplish and who you're trying to help and how you're going to kind of do it. And it's, I always recommend having help and support and other people involved that you can talk to because you can only get so far in your own brain. I know, personally. But yeah, getting super clear about what you're trying to do and then how you're going to accomplish it. The rest of it will kind of come as you go. Like you'll learn as you go and you'll try things and see what works and doesn't work and what people are interested in. But I think if you're really, really passionate about something, it's almost impossible for you to not succeed because your passion carries you forward and people can see that you're passionate about it. So I know for me, anytime I tell anyone about the nonprofit, they're like, oh my God, that's really cool. Like, I wish I had something like that. So yeah, but being really clear about what your mission is, who you're trying to help, and then how the logistics of that are going to kind of look so that you have a clear picture before you start trying to get people involved.
Well, so how quickly did that come together? Like, did you just come up with your vision before you started planning, or would you say that that vision really solidified and evolved as you started planning?
I've had a pretty clear idea from the beginning. So the name kind of popped into my head randomly. Like I was just thinking about things as I do. And the name popped into my head and I was like, oh, shoot. Okay, like it's go time now. So like, the universe or whatever, like the name popped in and I was like, okay, and I have these people that I've wanted to ask to be involved, but I had to have something to tell them before I asked them to help so that they knew they knew what it was that they were getting involved in. And so from the beginning I had a really clear picture of what I wanted it to look like down the road. And then they're on board with the mission and have helped me evolve it and kind of work through some of those things, the hiccups and the headaches and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, so in that process, what does that process look like of asking for help, finding the right people? How do you know who to talk to? Where do you find them? How do you reach out to these people? How do you get in touch with them? How do you actually, get in the door so that you're having conversations with the people that you need to have conversations with?
One of the things that from my business, I networked a ton with women in business. And so I already kind of had that group, I guess, or those resources available. And that's actually one of the reasons why I started my podcast is I'm like, I have all these people that I know that have all this information and these resources that they can share. So let's get more of that out there. And then I just kind of had those same connections and reached out to people. So specifically for the board, one of my strengths in my leadership background is finding unique teams and putting the right people in the right positions to help create a stronger team. So I was looking for people that had different experience from me, different backgrounds, and different skills and abilities, because if you create a team with all the same person,
right,
it's not super effective. So they all have different backgrounds, different experiences, different work history, and then all of that kind of comes together to create a stronger team.
Yeah, and I think that's so important to, like, for women to hear and to just like really hone that message in, because I think so many women, like, we want to try and do everything ourselves, right? And we feel like we should be able to do it all ourselves, right? And so I think a lot of women like have a hard time delegating tasks and really like finding the right people to do, you know, what needs to be done. So I think that, you know, just really reiterating for people that, hey, it's so much better if you can find, you know, experts in different fields to all come together, and it's so much easier to make things happen when you have those connections with other women.
Yeah.
So when you're going through this process, right, so you're, you know, you got this, you have this clear vision, you brought this team of passionate women together who wanted to help you bring this to life. You guys started having strategy sessions, you guys started meeting about, okay, like, what is all of this going to look like, right? Like the nitty gritty technical, okay, we want to reach girls who are high school age and we want them to be mentored. Well, you know, in what capacity are they being mentored, right? Like, are they getting private mentoring sessions? So how did like all of laying out that technical stuff look like? And like, was it messy? Like, how many times did this conversation have to evolve before you really got to the point where you're like, okay, we're planning this first event and now we have this first event coming up, which by the way is super exciting.
Yeah, it's gonna be super fun. So we had a few, when we first started, I think we did a couple of Zoom meetings, and then we had a couple of, I think 2 or 3 in-person, like 4-hour-long, like strategy sessions. And we had like whiteboards up, and we're like, okay, here's all the things that we want to accomplish. So it basically kind of breaks down to 2 things essentially. Is there's like events and like workshops and classes and courses and things like that. We want to be able to provide those down the road, and then also the mentorship. But we realized that the mentorship stuff is going to kind of develop as we start the other things, because we do want to have structure to that and say, hey, mentor, this is what you're expected to provide. Hey, student, this is what you're expected to provide.
Right.
Here's what the commitment looks like. Here's what you can expect to get out of it at the end, like that kind of thing. So there's a little bit more structure, but then also having more, we'd like to be able to do some small group mentorship stuff where maybe it's like once a month an attorney will meet with, you know, a handful of girls that are interested in becoming an attorney. It'll be like more in depth, like maybe they go to the office and they see what goes into it, that kind of stuff. But those things, once we started like mapping all this stuff out, we're like, okay, we're not going to be able to execute all of this stuff at the same time. And it seems like the mentorship stuff will evolve down the road. So we kind of like broke it down into that. So now we're starting with just some small events, some getting to know you kind of stuff, showcases, and then we'll be able to, the other thing that's part of this too is as people are participating in like the booth stuff, then they're going to be like, oh, it'd be really cool. I would love to teach a class on X, Y, or Z. And we feel like we'll kind of develop those things too. So
we just
kind of had to figure out like what's the start point, like what's the minimum viable concept, and then the other stuff will kind of come as we go. So
yeah, because I think a lot of people, like, if they get too overwhelmed, they'll get stuck, right?
Yeah, which happened to us. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So like, would you say the antidote to feeling way too overwhelmed and feeling stuck and like, oh my gosh, I have this big, huge vision and this dream, all of this stuff that I want to bring to fruition, it doesn't feel like it's ever going to happen, is just kind of that process of breaking it down. Like, okay, what are some small, concrete steps that we can take to at least get moving right now in the right direction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, I think, because that's what I help business owners with that all the time too, is a lot of us just feel like we want to do all these things, and there's so many things that go into all of that. You start doing this and you're like, oh shoot, well now I have to do this first, and I have to get this set up too, and that means I need to have somebody help me with this piece. So it was just kind of mapping out what's the long-term goal, and then walking it backwards into the bite-sized pieces, something that we could execute, because we can also execute this just from like the network that we have. So reaching out to people like you,
Right.
or people that we know that have expressed interest, or we can just be like, hey, I feel like what you do is really cool. It would be nice to connect you with young women in the area. Are you interested? And then kind of go from there. So without having to like advertise, you know?
Right. So was there ever a point where you felt like giving up?
Yeah, of course, yeah. That's normal. I hope everyone knows that. That's one of the most important pieces. Yeah, I definitely started to get kind of bummed. We were trying to do this like really big event, and it just felt like too much. And we just because we don't have that much funding yet, we were also like, how do we do a huge event for basically free? And then we just kept bumping. We kept meeting about stuff, and we were all just kind of feeling like super bummed and kind of dejected about it. And then I was talking to Elizabeth. She's one of my best friends, and she's also the treasurer on the board. And I was just like, dude, we need to do something else, because like I need something to like feel like we're making progress and actually doing some things. And then we just kind of talked through that stuff. What if we just try something smaller and go from there?
Right.
So
little tiny steps.
Yes. I was like, this is too much, and I don't know why. And I'm also losing the motivation to keep trying.
Right.
Yeah.
Small actions bring big results, right?
Yeah. And consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to touch on like motherhood for a second. So you have a stepdaughter. What does she think about all this? What is her role in, like, is she excited for you? Like, what does that relationship look like?
Yeah, she is our junior board member.
Yeah.
And is super excited about it. And then a lot of her close circle of friends are really excited, and they've been like giving us ideas. And
That's
so
amazing.
I'm like, can you tell us what you guys want to watch on social media? Like, what is?
Yes.
It's a totally different generation. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, like TikTok. I'm cool with TikTok, but yeah. So she's excited about it. It's I feel like for her, it's the ability to see change happening, like that someone's trying to make the world a better place for her and the generations after her. So yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing that you are creating this program that's going to expose all of these really young women to these opportunities, and just letting them know, you know, kind of like your tagline says, that anything is possible, right? Letting them know that it is. So as far as like reach, exposure, what's the best way do you feel like right now has been the best way for you to spend your marketing dollars?
We haven't done any paid anything yet. We will probably do some, maybe not for this first event because it's in like a week and a half, but we're doing another one in August too. So probably just social media ads. And then we post on social media consistently, and then we're going to start a Facebook group too, so like people can come in and just kind of like get updates and be a part of it. But yeah, I would say social media, especially for anything that's small and relatively grassroots, which is essentially what we're doing now. The social media advertising, because you can target so specifically like your area and the demographic that you're trying to reach. So that's what our plan is. Yeah,
and I think too, like that's a really good point to highlight, is like, because so many people are trying to get a business off the ground with little to no budget, right? And that can be really overwhelming. Like, I don't have this capital to go out and pay $5,000 to run all these ads, you know? And so like, so many people are in that boat. And I think that it's important to highlight that like, you can still make progress. You just have to know what to do. And it sounds to me like it's super, super important to network and leverage as many connections as you possibly can. And then social media, it's like, it's free, right? Yeah. And you can spread so much awareness, especially if you're like, have that clear vision, passionate about what you're talking about, and you really know what you're trying to accomplish with that. Because I mean, for you guys have your first event coming up on June 12th, and you're gonna have a booth there, and you're gonna be having high school girls there, and just like really spreading the awareness about what you do. And like, you guys made that happen with like a very small to no budget. So just so like women out there know, you know, that's you can do this. That's how I grew my business. I started my business 6 months before COVID. And
grew my business the entire time just by doing networking. I do a lot of networking on Facebook in groups. And I think approaching it from the perspective of just trying to build relationships and find good connections and people to work with, not necessarily like, yes, you should be trying to sell your stuff, especially if you're a business owner. But if you go into it with that, I don't feel like that's a sustainable approach personally. But if you're going in and you're just finding connections and meeting cool people, like we met randomly, because how did we meet originally? Did you reach out to me? Or did
I saw your event, your launch party for your
that's
nonprofit.
right. Yeah.
You posted, which by the way, also a great idea, a free thing that you can do, right? Is you can post an event on Facebook, right? So I saw this event coming up because I was part of the group.
Oh yeah.
And so I saw this event for Brave and Mighty Girls, and I saw the little description for it and what you guys were trying to do, and I was like, OMG, because I've always wanted to start some sort of mentorship program for high school age girls too, because I think that there's just such a need.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, she's doing this, I have to go to this. I brought my 13-year-old stepdaughter, and I met you, and I was like, oh my gosh, what you're doing is amazing, and I want to be part of this. This is incredible. So like that's just an example of like a super easy free thing that you can do to like make connections with other people. And
and I'm an introvert. Like I can pretend to be an extrovert. Like most people don't know that. They're like, you like are social and you talk to people, and I was like, but it kills me a little on the inside every time. So there's things that you can do too. It's just like figuring out how you work and what your strengths are and what makes you feel comfortable. Because there's certain types of networking events that I don't like to go to, which are just like the free-for-all kind, where it's at a restaurant or a bar and you just have to go talk to groups of people that you don't know. That's awful. I hate that. But the ones where there's like a luncheon or there's a little bit of structure and everybody introduces themselves, and then you can like from there I always make one-on-one connections with people. And that's how like I have an amazing network of women. I forget that, well, it's actually about 50-50 now, so it's like 50% female business owners and 50% male, but I feel like there's so many more because that's like who I network with mostly, so I know a ton of women in business and less men, coincidentally.
So what would be, give me 3 pieces of advice for the young female entrepreneur out there who's just getting started, maybe wants to start a nonprofit or a business, intimidated, overwhelmed. What advice are you going to give to her?
I have these written down. I should have remembered them. Believe in yourself is always the first one. Yeah. You are the only thing that's stopping you from succeeding at something. Like all of the other external environmental factors, whatever, are just roadblocks or tests. You can figure out a way around them. And find a mentor, find a group of people. Like that's the number one thing that I would say is find other like-minded people. Because if your friends or family aren't on board with that, maybe they're not business owners or they're not entrepreneurs, a lot of times they're going to kind of try and talk you out of it. So find people who are interested in doing that themselves, and it's a game changer because one of the biggest things that I've gotten from being a part of like networking with all these women is you tell them you're going to do something crazy and they're like, yeah. Right. That sounds amazing. Yes. Like, what can I do to support you? Which is a whole different vibe from someone being like, well, how are you going to make money though? Like, is that a real job? Like, do people actually make money selling their art or whatever the thing is?
Right, like, exactly.
Yeah, they do all the time. Yeah. So if you surround yourself with people who are going to encourage and support and understand, then those are also people that can help you get some of those roadblocks out of the way or see ways around them or over them or through them.
Important. Yeah.
What's my other one? Have fun. Like,
oh, I love that.
Do something, like if you're doing something that you're passionate about, like it should be fun most of the time. It's going to be hard, it's going to be challenging, and you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to learn things the hard way. But that's just part of the process. Like, enjoy the process, have fun while you're doing it. I remember what my other one was. Sorry, you get four pieces of advice. So sorry. But it's the like fail forward, but specifically look at it like it's the scientific method. Like you're going to have a hypothesis and you're going to test it, and it's probably going to fail the first time, and then you're going to come up with something new. You're going to tweak your approach.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that one fails again,
Right.
and then eventually you're going to come up with the right thing. But it takes time, and it's a process. And I think a lot of people get scared about starting something too because they're worried that they're going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just part of the process. So that's the best way that I can think of to describe it. Like the whole Einstein did 10,000 light bulbs or something before
Right.
he came up with the one that we use.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that all feeds into each other too, right? Because when you fail often, right? Like sometimes you have to fail a lot. Like I've failed a lot,
Oh, yeah.
you know, in things that I try. And so like you fail a lot and then, you know, you kind of feel like giving up sometimes, right?
Mhm.
And so I think all of that all feeds into each other because then if you have this network of women who are supporting you and they're standing by you, then it's so much harder to give up, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then also if you're just remembering to be kind of lighthearted about it, like remember, okay, like I didn't start this to be stressed out. I didn't start this thing to hate my life, right? Like
Yeah.
I started this because I'm passionate about it and I love it. And I want to like give this gift to the world. So like, I think all of those are great because they just really feed into each other and they will help you continue and persevere when you like
Yeah.
you don't want to anymore or you're stumbling or you just have those bad days. So.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes those days where it's really, really bad are the ones where it's like, okay, something needs to change. Like, what is the thing? Like, for me, that's definitely like a trigger point where I'm like, okay, I hate my life right now. What is happening? Like, this is not what I set out to do. Like,
Right.
like you said,
Yeah.
like I set out to do something that I love,
Yeah.
and I strive to do more things that I enjoy every day and like hire support and like have help do the things I hate, but that's different. But yeah, those are the days where I'm like, okay, what is the thing though? Like, what's the real problem? Is it I feel like my schedule's out of control, so I need to adjust how I'm scheduling things for myself? Is it I'm doing too many of these things and it's taking me away from doing what I enjoy? That kind of stuff. So
Right.
that's usually like a hold up, something's wrong, and then kind of adjust the strategy as needed. So.
Oh my gosh, well, I'm really, really excited. Your nonprofit is amazing, and I know that it's going to help so many women. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come
Yes.
sit down
Yeah.
and chat with YFE.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Okay.
Nailed it.
Dude.
Did we?
Oh yeah, that was so good.
That
Yeah.
was
Was
so freaking good.
That was so good.
Was
Yeah.
it?
That was so good.
Yeah, Paisley's like blacked out the whole time.
I'm like, dude, I feel like, yeah.
No, it was great.
Was I like monotone?
Dude, you were so